6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Through Black and White Eyes. So pleased to be doing this show with the Henry Winter, the one with 1.4 million followers, the one that everybody hates. I'm only joking. The amount of people who have got mixed up with that is just been absolutely hilarious. I feel sorry for the Henry Winter, who we have on the show, who's a brilliant guy himself, for getting a lot of stick on Twitter for having the wrong name. Poor lad. Before we bring him in, let's just get through the usual spiel. Evening all, still buzzing from yesterday. It'd be great to hear from Henry what it's like to commentate on games like that at St.James's Park. Perfect game, wasn't it? Please like, share, subscribe to help the channel grow. It's free. You can join from just 99p, be entered into a members-only prize draw. Even donate by using Super Chat in the bottom right-hand corner. Please adhere to standard community guidelines. Keep comments respectful, of course, and enjoy the show. Gary's in the house as always. Great to see you, Gary. Leslie's obviously on chat mode, and Ches is in there as well. We are waiting for Superfan Dan as well. He says he's going to come. I don't know when he's going to come, but hopefully soon. But let's bring the man in himself, Mr. Henry Winter. How are we doing?
Very well, thank you, Baz. How are you?
I'm very good. Since you said you're having a beer, I'm having a beer as well. Merry Christmas.
It'd be rude not to, wouldn't it? It'd be rude not to.
It would be very, very rude not to. So cheers to you.
Cheers, 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 cheers.
Now, let's get the horrible thing out of the way with. What's it like sharing a name with Mr. Henry Winter?
Honestly, it's been the bane of my life, my whole career. I get it. I get it. There's, two people who are working in sports journalism with the same name. But yeah, it's funny because when I was 16 and just sort of starting out and trying to get work experience and stuff, I actually emailed the other Henry Winter trying to get work experience, and he never replied to me. So
that's terrible.
Yeah, so we've had a fraught relationship throughout, and yeah, the amount of people I get messaging me and atting me and things, having a pop at me.
They're like the couple of guys that have done it before the show. It's just I was going to watch until I realized you had him on. I was just like, wait a minute. I was like, no, poor lad.
It's helpful sometimes, though, to be fair, because there was a moment 3 or 4 years ago when I was working in Leeds at the time, and I got this email through from this Pakistani TV station. I can't remember the name of it for the life of me, but they asked me on to come onto their show to talk about the weekend's results, and I was kind of reading this email thinking, why did they want me? Because I wasn't really doing the commentary stuff at that point. Yeah. I was just thinking, why? And it transpired. I realized down the line that they obviously thought that I was the other Henry Winter, but I accepted it. And I was like, I'm just going to come on and do it. And yeah,
100% you do it, definitely. Why not? Charles is another one who got mixed up. He says, has Henry had plastic surgery? Looks much younger. Maybe Henry should call himself Harry. It might help a little bit.
Get the other Henry Winter to change his name.
Yeah, I agree with that one.
A lot of pressure on me to change. I'm not interested.
Right, let's bring Superfan Dan in. He's made it. How are we doing, Dan?
Good afternoon or good evening to you both.
Evening for us.
Henry,
afternoon
nice
for
to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So Dan's in California.
Yeah.
California. Amazing. Did you catch yesterday's game then? I assume you did.
7 a.m. I missed the first goal, of course, because the pub was a little late opening up on Boxing Day. The responsible bartender enjoyed himself a little too much on Christmas. So the cook had to let us in, and I had to turn on all the TVs. So yeah, I missed the first goal, but we got to see the halftime highlight. So no, great stuff. Amazing.
No, that's great commitment as well. Like, because I know there's been a lot more following of Newcastle over in the States, and you see all these groups coming up on Twitter and social media, and I just love the passion that you guys have got over there.
Ours is not a Magpie only bar. Ours, it's one of those ones where we invite everybody. So we had 3 Wolves fans, 2 Spurs fans, a Liverpool supporter, a couple of Man City fans. Surprisingly, no one supporting Man United at this time, or at least not in public. But Baz, as promised, my mate, my Aston Villa supporting mate, flaked. He said, he said, I can't. And I think he was just concerned that I might be taking a little bit too much of the piss out of him. So
he picked the right game to drop out, to be fair.
Jesus.
Though, didn't he?
I just wish, I know we're going to talk about it, aren't we?
Of course we are.
I'm sitting there looking at, at Isak and Bruno's goals and just going, but we'll talk about those.
Just so you know, though, Dan has been supporting Newcastle for a very long time. He's not one of these ones that just popped up recently, which is, when was it? 2000 and...
Well, 94 is when I started, because that's when I was in college with the Dublin.
Came over,
but 2002, we came over and honeymooned on Tyneside.
Amazing. So you had a taste of the good days, and then
we met the a sportscaster from ITV, who then invited us down to do an interview down on the quayside right by the Millennium Bridge. So we did a little bit of that, and then they took us up to the stadium, and they took us down on the touchline, and then the cameraman said, "Oh shit, I left the blue filter on, we've got to start over." So they took us up the match day tunnel, and at the top of the stairs was Craig Bellamy, and I was chatting with Craig Bellamy, and then all of a sudden this gentleman stepped between us and went through the double doors to go out to the parking lot, and Craig says, Gaffer, I want to introduce you to some mates of mine from California." And Sir Bobby turned around, and I was speechless. I couldn't talk. He said, "What are you doing in Newcastle?" And my wife said, "We came to see you." Because I had no voice. It was just like blah, 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 blah. So honestly, yeah,
I'd freak out. I don't know how you'd have any composure in that situation. That's amazing. You got to.
It was fantastic. We got a terrific picture of the 3 of us, and then the following day we came down to see all the guys get on the bus to go out to Chesterley Street, because that's where they were training still. And Shearer came out with a bib that says, "I've had a stinker." That was apparently the tradition then. It was awarded by the captain to the player who had the worst training session that day. So I reached out, I just yelled out, and I said, "Alan," and then he turned around, and I just got sheepish, and I was just, "Mr. Shearer, may I have your autograph?" And he said, "Where are you from?" I said, "California." He goes, "Right, you're the couple on the honeymoon. I read about you in the newspaper yesterday." And he was just so gracious and so wonderful, and just many lasting memories of being on Tyneside. And this is our 6th or 7th trip, Baz, the one coming up in January.
Can't wait.
Yeah, we're coming over for Wolves and Bournemouth, because it's the only week that there are 2 back-to-back home games.
Yeah.
So looking forward to it.
Was a lot better than my meeting with Alan Shearer, because I'd never met him until literally a few weeks ago, and I just finished doing the commentary and came into the sort of press area, and I was buzzing. I can't remember which game it was now. It was the 3-3. It was Newcastle 3, Liverpool.
Liverpool. Yeah. Great game.
Yeah, so everyone's hyped up with energy. I'm buzzing, and I fly through the door, and I'm talking to Paul, who I was commentating with. And I thought, that was a fucking class game. That was amazing. And then I get a shh from on the press box. I'm like, what? And Eddie Howe's just around the corner doing interviews with radio, and I'm like, oh no, that's a really bad impression that I've just left there. And then I sort of turned around, being like, I'll get out of here, and bumped into this huge lad, and he was like, "Oh, you're all right, mate, you're all right." And I was like, sorry, and it was fucking Alan Shearer. I've just embarrassed myself in front of Eddie Howe and Alan Shearer in the space of a minute. So yeah, your meeting sounded nicer than mine.
Yeah, but they'll only hear your voice on radio. They'll never put the face with the voice. It's okay. It's all right, Henry.
That's the beauty of it. Yeah, they have no idea. There's some weird lad who keeps bumping into people and shouting at people in the press area.
This is why you always get mixed up with the wrong Henry Winter.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's true.
Brilliant. Right, let's get on to the game. This was Villa's lineup. No surprises for me how Villa lined up, to be honest with you. I was very worried about Morgan Rogers. I think he's a quality player. I watched them against Man City, and I thought, we're going to be in for a bit of a tasty game today. Newcastle lined up with 2 changes. One I expected Joelinton to come back in if he was fit enough. But Tino dropping out because of illness. Nothing was said in the press conferences, the lead up to the game. We all just thought everything was rosy. And then suddenly Trippier starting. Now, to have someone of Trippier's class to come in, it just shows you there is strength in our squad. Obviously, in certain areas there isn't, but in defence, especially at right back, we have a quality guy to step in, don't we? So, and it couldn't have went any better, could it? Really? I mean, Jesus Christ! First time ever. Now we aren't Brentford. Let's just, Brentford are the masters of scoring early, but we took a leaf out of their book recently. It's the first time ever we've managed to score inside 2 minutes back to back. And it was a brilliant goal as well, wasn't it? Because I think Villa only touched the ball twice before the ball hit the back of their net. And that was an attempt of a tackle on, I think it was Tonali in midfield, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And it was brilliantly worked to Joelinton. And I got excited as soon as I saw him powering forward towards their defensive line. I thought, oh, go on, have a dig. And he just side-footed it to Gordon and went over to you, mate, stepped inside, smashed it in the top corner. And that is the Gordon we've been waiting to see all season, isn't it, Henry? Just to have lift off at St. James's Park like that inside 90 seconds was incredible.
Oh yeah, I mean, like it's been a slow start to the season for Gordon, and you wonder, was there a bit of hangover from the Euros? Maybe he wasn't quite fit enough, but just the last 2 or 3 games, especially, we've really seen him come back to the player that we all love. And it's funny, you've got me on this podcast, and literally this was the one game I actually didn't commentate on yesterday. It's sod's law, that, isn't it? But watching it in the pub with a few friends, which, to be fair, I rarely get the luxury of doing because I'm usually at the game, so it's quite nice to hear it from a fan's perspective. And we've had a lot of fast starts this season, a lot of like really good opening 5-10 minutes, but like haven't capitalized on it, but just becoming way more clinical in the last few games. And all this nonsense about Gordon's not happy, this rift with Eddie Howe, it's obviously all crap. So it's really great to see him back to his best, because he's so important for what we do, and good to see him playing on the left, because that's been a problem, where he's been played up front or on the right, where he's just not as effective. So no, good to have him back to full.
Do you think it's down to Tonali being established now as the 6? Do you think that's given him a bit of freedom? Because we've seen Joelinton and Willett go in and out of the side, but Gordon has become more of the fixture on the left, as we've expected him to be.
And Barnes.
And Barnes.
Was the problem. That was the big problem, was trying to get Barnes into the side somehow.
Was trying to shoehorn him.
Yeah, which didn't work.
No, I completely agree with that. I think that was the problem. I think Barnes is such a good player. He's got so much quality, but at the end of the day, Eddie's got to make a harsh decision and drop him, because neither player, Gordon or Barnes, are as effective on the right. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, Barnes is a class player to bring on as a sub. I think he can inject a lot of energy into the side, and that's a really good option to have. I'm sure he's not happy with that. I'm sure he'd want to be starting every game. I think that's what he was hoping to achieve coming to Newcastle. But to the Tonali point, I think that's been the revelation for us in the last for the last few games, because I think we've changed the way we play now. The team you saw finish 4th a couple of years back was a high pressing, high intensity team. They'd run themselves into the ground, pressing the whole 90 minutes. Yeah. And at the start of the season, you could tell that maybe a few players are trying to do that, but the whole team wasn't really doing it effectively. So Eddie's obviously seen that and gone, actually, we need to change things here. And with Tonali playing in that 6, it just gives so much more stability to that midfield, doesn't it? And I think we're seeing the benefits of that completely, because, like you say, Dan, it gives Gordon a lot more, Bruno a lot more freedom as well. I think it's pretty unanimous in terms of people's opinion on where he plays best. I think that is in that 8.
Yep.
Him a bit more license to roam and get forward. So no, I think that balance in the midfield has been the absolute key to our success recently.
And it's not just Tonali though; it's Murphy being on the right-hand side. And I know he's everyone's scapegoat a lot of the times, but he sticks to that right wing. He's effective in some games, not every game, but he's brought the balance back to the team as well, hasn't he? And
he's having a bit of a purple patch, as we've discussed.
He's having his purple patch because there's a transfer window coming up, and there's a talk of a new right winger coming in.
Fair.
He's thought, I better get my shooting boots on again, which he has done. But we've also got to remember, though, Bruno's not just the 8, Tonali is also the 8 as well. I don't know if you saw this. Were you at the Brentford game commentating on that one?
It wasn't the Brentford game, no, because I only do home games.
Right.
So,
the home one, the Brentford one, the cup game.
I know we played them in the Premier League beforehand. So
we did, yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, the Premier League game, I was at that one, and they did a lot of sort of swapping.
Switching. And there was about 5, I think it was about, I'm probably being generous for 5 minutes, but I noticed Bruno drop back as a centre-back at one point in that game as well. In the second half, I think it was, because someone, I think it was Shaw or Dan Burn, had gone up front and drifted a bit too far. And Bruno was very intelligent and just stepped back and went, I'm going to have to stay here for a little bit. Where in the past, he wouldn't have done that. That hole wouldn't have been recognised, and that's how we were conceding a lot of goals. So they seem to be in tune now, don't they? That's probably the best way to describe it.
Yeah, well, I think that's, that was the whole debate, wasn't it? Can you play Bruno and Tonali in the same team? And I think obviously it's great that we've proven that we can. And it does rely on them switching around a bit. And, it's slightly different when Willock's in there. It's slightly different when Joelinton's in there. So there is a balance, quite a changeable balance in that midfield depending on who's starting and who's playing, but they've got a great understanding. They seem to have a really good relationship. Sort of, you see all these things on YouTube and them bonding when they're training and stuff. They seem to be quite close as well, and I think that's really helped Tonali obviously getting comfortable in the team, and obviously 9 months out of the first team when he was banned. I mean, I think it can't be understated how difficult that must have been to get back to full fitness, get working in that team. And I think Bruno's been really kind of pivotal in how that's worked. So it's great. And I think it just shows how good a manager Eddie Howe is once again to have found that solution, because he was getting it's amazing how quickly things change, isn't it? He was getting sick and the Eddie
not from us.
No, I know not from you guys.
Not on this channel.
No, not from me either. No, not from me either, because I think it's just incredible how fickle some people can be. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, but he's clearly a top class manager, and he's if you don't think he's sitting every night watching replays of the game trying to work out how this could work, then you're deluded. Exactly. So
his credit rating in the bank of Newcastle is far too high.
Hell yes.
In my opinion, there's no way that we could even legislate getting sacking him at this point. The Eddie Howe club has gone underground again. So we're thankful for that.
And this whole, he doesn't like Tonali, he doesn't want to play him, was all a load of rubbish. Like you mentioned about him being out of the game for so long, you're not match fit until you play games. Even if you've been training for a year with no injury, it's training, it's complete different fitness. When you get into a game, you're literally 80% from top fitness, aren't you, from being in a game to training. And that was the thing. He was trying to bleed him back into it. And again, he was trying to get the balance right as well. So, and all this, he's not one of his favourites. He doesn't like him. He's fallen out with him. Oh, God, I'm sick of hearing it.
And you saw also when Tonali came, his English wasn't good. That 9 months, he obviously squirreled away and did a little bit of language training and such, because now he can actually hold a conversation. And I truly believe that Tonali got together with Joelinton and Bruno often when they weren't playing, and getting to know the area, getting to know and he had a regular table at Wetherspoons. So I mean, it was all good. So yeah,
it was brilliant.
I just to Henry's point, the camaraderie within the team is solid again. It's like what we saw when they went into the pregame in Austria before last season. That was the group that we saw on the East Coast during the summer series. We saw that, it was the same, the attitudes from the lads that we met. We went to an open training session in Atlanta. It was, 95-degree heat at 9 o'clock in the morning. But those lads came off the pitch and they were gracious as they could be. And you could tell that they genuinely enjoyed each other's company. They were all just having a laugh. And then the video that the club shared where they went out and played baseball for the first time just kills me to this day. I mean, they had such a great preseason last season, and then to have as many injuries as we had, and then throw the Champions League in there with the same championship level squad that we had, from some players. Just, it was a lot to ask for last year, and it's what Villa's seeing now. I mean, they may be doing well in the Champions League, but it's hurting them elsewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And I said that at the start of the season, they would probably struggle a bit because of it. Right. This happened next. There's a lot of people online, mainly Villa fans, saying it's not a red card. There are a few other people with high profile saying it wasn't a red card. So I decided to ask the previous head of the PGMLO, was this a red card? Keith Hackett says, yes, it was a silly challenge and deserved the red card. His reaction to the technical area was unfortunate and is likely to earn an extra further 2 days as well. Now, when you've got someone like Keith Hackett saying it was a red card, surely it's a red card. Now, what do you think, Henry? Now, personally, I think as a striker and you're going to go down on top of a player, you do everything you can to protect that player under you. You don't put your leg out how we did and then run it along his back. That's intentional, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I've gone back and forth on it quite a bit since watching it, because obviously you're watching it live and you see the reaction from the players around Dúbravka coming up immediately and squaring up to him. Obviously, Dan Burns kicking off, and you think, oh well, there's something in that. Yeah. And then it's the first angle they showed on the telly. It was kind of like, okay, that just seems unfortunate. But it's the angle from behind where you see this kind of pretty obvious stamp down with his left foot and then the right. And I think anyone who's played football at any level, whether it's five-a-side or higher up, knows that if you get tackled like that, especially if someone's sliding underneath you and you're up in the air, you have the time and the sort of ability to avoid
the wherewithal
contact with that player. You might land on them, but to land studs down,
exactly,
is for me an obvious bit of intent there. And I think that's. But it's interesting. I was watching Match of the Day last night, and Shearer, who obviously the side of Newcastle fans, was saying it was a harsh one. So, and he was showing a replay where you could see his left foot kind of slip and give way, and maybe that's why he couldn't land. I'm not sure if I buy that, to be honest. It's one of the rare occasions I don't really agree with him.
This is coming from Alan Shearer, who kicked Neil Lennon in the face and got away with it.
That's a fair point. But yeah, for me, it's a red. I don't know about you, Dan, but I think that's.
There was. We saw that we were just getting set up at that point. I mean, getting everything set up at the pub. So I got to see the replay of it. I didn't get to see it in action. Yeah, nice one, Shez. There was mention on social media that there was an interaction between Cher and Duran earlier, where Duran felt he was hard done by Cher, and so there's a little bit of cynicism here, where people are thinking, Duran had an opportunity here. As you say, if you're in the air, you have the ability to. Okay, I'm going to do my best to not step on this guy. Let me get it, and he did nothing like that. And there was a little bit of I think there was some reciprocity that was thought, or retaliation thought, amongst the Geordie faithful, that just said, look, he was just getting back at Cher. And my first action, I looked at my missus and she said his missus is going to be examining, a gash in his buttock tonight. I was like, yeah, fair enough. So, I mean, it was, like I said, it was cynical. It was just, you could see, he was just like, I'm going to go in and maim this guy if I can, not a Roy Keane level, I'm going to take the Holland one. But it was let's see if I can fuck this guy up. a little bit.
Yeah.
So,
And I mean, you could see him. He was waiting for Shaw to make that challenge, because as a striker, you know the defender's going to make that tackle, don't you? You know he's going to come flying in and try and take you out. And he was using that as an excuse. Well, he's going to hit me. I'm going to hit him.
Yeah.
And he had the time, like you mentioned, when you're in the air, you've got a chance to adjust yourself. He could have just sat on Shea.
Yeah.
Just fell
just
on
landed on him. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So put your leg in the air and, land on Shea, and that's going to hurt him anyway. And then you won't be sent off. He still had the ability to put his name on him, really, in a way. So I think it was a red. Obviously, the Villa fans don't, but there you go. Obviously, the game stayed like that. Obviously, when it went to, I was still a little bit edgy. I don't know about you guys. When it's 1-0, even though we're playing against 10 men, Villa are in good form, I was still very, very edgy. And I said at halftime on the live watch along, I was like, look, we've got to be patient in the second half. We've got to pick our moment. And boy, did we pick our moment for that second goal, because it was lovely football. And then it was in and around the box. And then Bruno saw the run from Murphy and he laid it on a plate from Murphy, gets the assist. But for me, the assist is Bruno, because that pass was
100%.
perfectly weighted. And then he squares it to Isak. He's got an open net, and this lad is in some vein of form at the moment, isn't he, Henry?
Yeah, I mean, he's so special, and I think he again, like a few of the big players, had a slow start to the season. Maybe wasn't quite looking as sharp as we'd seen him before, but he's benefiting a lot from that Murphy on the right hand side, and I think that's that kind of assistance, that someone with a right foot being able to run to the byline and cut it across is really helpful for him, because he's great in the box. Isak, obviously, a lot's made of his dribbling ability as well, and he's got that obviously in abundance. But he's really intelligent, and those runs he's making, those sort of kind of perfectly timed runs, is perfect. And when you've got Murphy, a right foot player, like I say, versus say an Almiron who's always going to cut in on his left-hand side and come into that central space and almost kind of get in the way of things, I think it's so much better to have a right footer from Isak's point of view. And he's been absolutely sensational. And it's imperative that Newcastle keep hold of him. Obviously, there's a lot of chat about PSR and having to maybe sell one of our big players, but there's not a striker in the Premier League in better form than Isak at the moment. I do think he's one of the best in Europe. So who on earth do you replace him with?
Well, this is it. If you sell Isak for say 120 million, you're gonna have to spend 100 million to replace him. So what's the point?
Yeah, and I don't see an obvious replament. I don't see anyone. There are players. There are obviously top quality players you could bring in.
Yeah, but not like him though, are there?
That gives you so much, not just obviously goal scoring, but that ability on the ball as well. Like he's brilliant when he plays on the left, off the left as well. And we saw a taste of his dribbling ability as well in the Villa game. I can't remember what, but it reminded me of the dribble against Everton.
I was like, he's going to do it again.
I was thinking, he's going to do it again here. But no, I love him, and he's such a cool, calm, and composed and level-headed kind of guy.
Well, he's Swedish.
Yeah. No, but I'm a massive fan. I can't remember seeing that has excited so many Newcastle fans in a long time. And no wonder big clubs are after him. I think if we're going to sell someone, it cannot be him. Although it's good to see that goals are coming from elsewhere in the team. Yeah. Yes. And I think that's something of note recently. I think of the last 10 goals we've scored, there's been 6 different goal scorers. I might be wrong with that.
You'd be pretty close with that.
Yeah, I think it's something like that. So, which is really good, because previously you'd be relying on Gordon or Isak, and now we're getting goals from Murphy and a bit of Tonali and Bruno, and it's good to see, and it just shows the system's working really well.
Yeah, you mentioned something very, very clever there, that Isak relies a lot on Murphy, or he's getting a lot of help from him, but Murphy's getting a hell of a lot of help from Isak as well, isn't he? Because the amount of times he's cut in off that left, he's took on a few players, and Murphy's just held his position on the right, and he's been found in ample space. And because of that, this is Jacob Murphy's last 4 Premier League games, 4 assists, 3 goals, which is incredible, really, because we're all saying it's nearly January, we can buy a right winger, and he's putting down the numbers that we would spend 80 million on to get on a right winger, isn't he? And I know some of the teams, Leicester, Ipswich, you think, well, not the best, but you've still got to do it. And he should have scored against Villa when he hit the bar, which
Yeah.
was a little bit disappointing for him. But Dan, those numbers are fantastic for someone who is used as a scapegoat a lot of the times.
Yep, but it's what we've been talking about the last several episodes on this channel is we know that Murphy has off and on patches, and he's been off for a bit, but we've also seen him come on in spades for 2 games. We're seeing that now extended a bit. He's had a longer purple patch this season than he has in past seasons. I mean, we saw what he did against Spurs in the 5-6-1, in the first 21 minutes. We saw what he was capable of, and we know he's capable of that. He can't be, for one reason or another, he's not consistent. And we're seeing that consistency. Is it the talk that we're looking at a right winger? Maybe he's cementing his place, going, oh, look, if Miggy's gone, I need to be the guy that comes off the bench, not Barnes. We don't need Gordon over here because we can all see Gordon plays better on the left. He says, I need to be that guy. If I'm not going to be the guy day in, day out, if they're going to go get somebody better than me, I'm going to give them no choice but say, I'm the guy that comes off the bench to give that guy a rest. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot in the fact of he's quite a confidence player as well, Murphy. I think when he gets to running the side like he's been getting recently, you can tell he's up for it. He's taking on players. He seems really confident on the ball. I do think, and I agree with one of your commenters, I think it was Victor, saying that I do still think we need another right winger though, because if you lose Murphy through an injury or whatever, then what is the backup? And that's when the frailty of that position comes in. So his form is great. Long may it continue, but I think there needs to be some reinforcement there still, for sure.
Well, we like it when he's feeling juicy, don't we?
Yeah. And he's a good lad as well, isn't he? Like
he is.
We all like him. Very likable.
It's the horrible thing, isn't it? It's like, oh, Murphy's crap, but look at that smile.
Look at that smile. No, and he's a childhood Toon fan. Come on now. I mean, this guy, if you cut him, he's going to bleed black and white. So I mean,
it's another reason to stick around in the squad, isn't it? He will be happy being a squad player if he's not in the starting 11. And sometimes you don't want players like that because you want players to go, no, I deserve to be in the 11. I want to start. But he'll be like, yes, boss. Yes, boss. Whatever, boss. Jump off the time bridge, boss. Not a problem. Do you know what I mean? He's that kind of guy, isn't he? So he's good to have around. It's a bit like Sean Longstaff as well. I know he might think, I should be playing every week, but he's black and white. It's his dream to play for the club, so he's going to get his chances.
I just saw that one
every week.
Sorry, I just saw that. Gary's comment. I just saw that this morning. Yep.
Brilliant.
Great.
Wingers are so difficult to buy. History is like teams who overpaid for wingers. If we can get Mbeumo for 60 million, we should do it. I love Mbeumo.
100%. 100%.
And yes, there has been some horrific signings on the wings for Man United and Spurs, haven't there? And Chelsea. Right. Joelinton wrapped it all up for us. It was a beautiful goal. Again, it was the high press. It was the intelligence of when to go. He saw the pass. That was a bit weak. It didn't make it to the intended target because Joelinton stepped in there. He ran towards the Villa box. He had 2 players. He had, I think it was Hall on the left or Barnes on the left of him. He just thought, nah, I'm just going to smash it in the top corner myself. And I thought he was absolutely sensational against Villa. He was my man of the match. 1 goal, 1 assist. I think he bossed that midfield when we all thought, with Onana in there, Tillemans and Rodgers, that there was going to be a bit of a battle. And I thought he was just a man mountain. And it's good to see him back on top form because he's took a bit of unnecessary stick, I think, Henry. I don't know if you agree with that, but he's lost a bit of confidence because I think his house being robbed twice hasn't helped. That's going to be playing on his mind, and it's a horrible situation. But I think against Villa, he was superb.
Oh, I've always been a massive fan of him. Maybe not when he was a striker for us. But so maybe I'm lying there. But no, he's such a powerhouse, and that midfield doesn't work without Joelinton in there because he's such a boss. Tonali, he does get stuck in. Bruno, maybe not the most physical player, but that Joelinton in there is going to work his socks off, and he's quite versatile as well because he's been playing on the left a few times, and
And on the right as well, didn't he, against Forest?
And on the right against Forest. And he does a job. I think on the left, he's quite an interesting prospect. He does quite well. There's a lot of competition in that position, but I think his best position is in that sort of box to box midfield kind of role. Yeah. And I'm so pleased that it's gone so well for him, because he's very, again, a very likable character. I think there's no doubt that that your house being robbed, that probably does affect you mentally, because I think you're only as good as the player you are at home as well, in terms of your life and how everything's set up. So I'm not surprised if that maybe had an impact. But his physicality, he's such a beast, and I think you wouldn't find a Premier League club who wouldn't want him in your side. What a finish as well. Maybe not something we associate, like that kind of finesse kind of shot from the outside of the box, but sensational, and he fully deserves it. And I think it's the blonde hair. I think they always play better when they've dyed their hair. So that must have had an impact as well.
We nearly lost Day 7 to Liverpool, though, didn't we? Because Eddie Howe had to beg the owners at the time to give him a new contract. So it was
I'd heard those rumours that there was a bit of that going on, but no, thank God we didn't, because I mean, what a player,
I have been critical of Bruno after he goes blonde. It usually takes 2-3 games to get Bruno back to full Bruno after
get that peroxide out of his brain, innit?
Exactly. Well, see, and I know, and unfortunately, Asula's done it now too, and that maybe that's condemned him to the bench, and we're never going to see him again. But no, Bruno, for some reason, it always affects. J7 is the opposite. As soon as he goes blonde, he's a beast. It's like, the peroxide Hulk. It's something else. I'm coining that one. Peroxide Hulk from now on.
Oh man, this is what Bruno had to say after the game. What a game! What a performance by our team. We remain strong in pursuit of our goal. Sad that my goal was disallowed, which it should have been. It was, let's face it, hit his arm. I know it's on hard done by, because he couldn't get out the way of it. But we were very aggrieved at the penalty decision in the Champions League, weren't we, when it struck an arm? So I don't mind that being disallowed. And obviously Isak's goal was offside as well. There's been a lot of debate on that as well. But he's proud of his teammates. Anthony Gordon obviously said it was a screamer, and thank you for the support from the Toon fans. But Bruno was sensational again. Like I say, that assist was fantastic for the second goal. Who was your man of the match, Henry?
Ooh, probably, and he was a bit unsung in that game. Tonali, I think, just absolutely dominated that central defensive midfield. You could given it to a lot of them, to be fair. I really enjoyed Tonali's performance. He's putting out fires constantly in front of that back four. He's the anchor of that entire midfield now, and it just completely works. And that first goal was a great example of it, because obviously he wins that ball back in midfield. He sets Bruno on his way to Joelinton and to Gordon, and I just think he's been an absolute revelation. And we always knew there was a lot of quality in him, but I just think he's finally cemented that number 6 position. Obviously, swapping now and again with Bruno, they've got that great relationship, as we mentioned earlier. But I love watching him play. I think he's got the potential, if he stays in Newcastle for a long time, to be a proper legend, because he's just so fierce, so passionate, clearly as well. And he's not your Jacob Murphy smiling all the time, and he's not that kind of player. But you can tell
does he ever smile?
He hates being there. We all know he's unhappy. He never smiles.
But he's just clearly just locked in, laser focused in these kind of games. And no, I think he's great, and it's good to see him get on the score sheet. He should have had one. It was an incredible save, wasn't it, from Martinez?
From Martinez, yep.
Oh, it was an unbelievable save.
One tipped on the post.
That he was my favourite performance. Having said that, I had at this point probably had 4 or 5 pints, so my judgment might have not been incredible. You guys might have a different different perspective.
I love it. Dan, who's your man of the match?
I wasn't 4 or 5 in at 7 o'clock in the morning. I was still waiting on my first Guinness at 8, only because the bartender was late. And the tap man was cleaning the lines, so we couldn't get anything. So that's the way it worked. But maybe that's why the bartender was late. No, I have to agree with some of the comments. I thought J7 Joelinton was my man of the match, but again, and I've said it in the comments. The most consistent player we've got on the pitch right now is Big Dan Burn. Yes. I love Big Dan Burn. You'll remember, Baz, I called him my favorite current player because he's not flashy. He's not flashy. He's the guy you want on the side to get the business done. And that's what he did. He does. And at 13 million, 15 million, whatever we got him from Brighton, it was a snip. Good Lord. I don't think Eddie Howe knew what he was getting. But he bleeds black and white. We know it, and he's just. I want Botman back in the side, but I don't know how you right now. I don't know how you drop Dan Burn.
Do you think he's been helped? Well, the whole back four has been helped by perhaps Dúbravka being in there.
I think that's fair. Yes, agreed.
Just in terms of, they seem a lot calmer as a back four, and Nick Pope's an incredible shot stopper, and will always be the #1 keeper in Newcastle. But Dúbravka's calmness on the ball, I think has helped us. I mean, we've had 3 clean sheets in a row in the Premier League now. So
you used the right word. It was calmness that he's brought. His ability with his feet has shown Cher and Burn. Look, we know that we can pass back to Dúbravka, and he's going to be able to distribute from there, and it'll get where it's supposed to go. He's not getting any younger. And he's not the shot stopper that Nick Pope is, but there's a reason why when Rafa brought Dúbravka in, on loan, there's a reason why we made it permanent, and he's shown through and through. I'll forgive the 6 months at Man United. I will, because he has shown that even when he's wearing the #1 jersey, but even when he's forced to the bench and forced to be the backup, that when he can come in, he can do a job. And you're absolutely right. There's a solidity to our back line now with Dubs back there that allows us to press on. I mean, like you said, Henry, last season we saw the high press a lot. I think the new fitness coach, Bunce, came in and said, look, the reason why we were suffering so many injuries last year was because of the high press. We were asking too much, and because we had so many injured players, we didn't have anybody to bring in. So we need to calm down a little bit. Let's see. Dubs back there shows the back line. Look, we can go another 10 yards forward. We don't have the high press, but we can get up there and hold the line, and maybe offside trap or whatever. But I mean, and I've said this before. I think the big thing that happened yesterday was Trippier coming in. I think his leadership at that back line with Dubs behind him, I thought everybody performed so well. I know we had the ratings sheet up just a minute ago, and I know you wanted
Trippier
to talk
was the
about
only
that,
one who was under a 7,
Agreed.
which really shocked me, because I thought Trippier he did everything he was expected of him.
That leap when he blocked the cross and then recovered the ball. Yeah. What 34-year-old in the league is doing that?
Yeah. And you could tell he wasn't ready to play 90 minutes because he unfortunately goes down and gets himself potentially an injury, which we don't know what's come of that. That'll be interesting for the Man United game. Let's hope Tino's got over whatever he had. But the whole team was brilliant. And you're right on the Dubs, and we've touched on this a few times on the channel, haven't we, when we've been speaking in previous shows. I agree with Dubs is better with his feet, and the back four look calmer, playing the ball around. The one thing I'm worried about is if we have to face the amount of shots that we've faced in previous games, is Dubs going to save as many as what Pope does? So, for example, at the start of the season, the Southampton save in the last minute, the Spurs save in the last minute. Does Dubs make those? And do we lose 4 points off our total because, Dubs is better with his feet, but he's not a better shot stopper? So it's a tough one, isn't it? Because you just want the all-round goalkeeper like a lot of the top Premier League clubs have got. And that's our aim for our next goalkeeper, whoever we buy. I think Trafford is one that's been talked about.
Can we take Dub's legs and put them on Pope?
Yeah,
We're the richest club in the world. We can afford this. Come on,
can do it.
$6
Yeah,
million
we can do
man,
it.
brilliant. Whatever. Let's put it together. We have the technology.
Listen, if we can't buy our players, we might as well make them.
and we'll call the combined player Steve Austin. Sorry. and it has no, the $6 million man, and he has to make the sounds when he makes saves. That's what has to happen. Sorry, I just aged myself.
I prefer Stone Cold me, to be honest with you.
If you look at the a lot of the top teams at the moment, though, they seem to be prioritizing keepers who can play with their feet, though, over shot stopping. I mean, like if you look at, I'm saying top team, but if you look at Man United, they obviously are quite, really back Onana clearly, and this guy's not a great shot stopper at all, but in theory is good with his feet. To be honest, I don't really buy it, but that was the whole philosophy behind that kind of signing, because there was this whole thing about De Gea is not good enough with his feet, and so we need a new player. And so by that logic, Dúbravka should be our number one keeper, but I just don't see that ever happening. And a lot of chat about him being sold in January as well.
Age now, what is he's coming up 35?
Yeah.
You know, even Pope's 31, 32 now. So he's sort of in his prime, I suppose, but he is Bambi on ice a lot of the times at the back, isn't he? Which is, which we've all said, if we want to go to the next level, as harsh as it is, we do need a goalkeeper that can, be more confident on the ball and pass it out better. So,
and we've seen Popey is starting to favor that shoulder that was repaired.
Is this down to his knee? Because he's got a knee injury now, hasn't he? And a lot of people think it was his shoulder that he wouldn't dive on, but maybe it's that knee that he didn't want to go down on.
Yeah, maybe.
An interesting one for you, because he's had injections in it. I don't know when he's going to be back, though. Our backline has been helped massively by the dominance of our midfield. Of course it has. It's a team performance, though, isn't it? There's the photograph. We all love the photograph. Santa's down there in the bottom right-hand corner. Great to see Trips in the middle of it. Like I say, he got a lot of stick recently, hasn't he? Because he obviously had a bit of a poor end to last season. But for me, he's one of the reasons why we're still in this league. And he's got credit in the bank for me. I still think he's absolutely quality. And not to mention Tyndall there in the middle with his hoodie on, which was just absolutely fantastic.
Love
that. The balls on the man to whip that out.
Do you think he got sent off on purpose? You can go and get it.
Oh, it's sensational. You know what?
I showed all those posts to my wife, and she was just like, "No, those are all photoshopped." I said, "They are not.
They're not
Those are brilliant.
Absolutely brilliant."
Well, no, that's exactly what I thought. Because when I first saw that on social media, I thought surely not. But no, he did. But that, on a serious note, that sort of, I suppose, feistiness that you see there from Tyndall, you're kind of seeing that in the team now as well. Because we used to be nasty to play against, and I think that's a big part of why we're playing well at the moment. Like, we were, sort of labeled as the experts of the dark arts and all that kind of stuff during that season. We finished fourth, and we kind of lost that a little bit. So it's nice. I don't mind seeing Tyndall getting sent off now and again. I think it's good. I think it's good for the club.
As long as it's not the players in the 90 minutes, then I'm all for it.
And I'm fine with it.
We've touched on this quite a lot through the season. We always go back to that Champions League winning season, because technically we're in the same sort of situation, aren't we? We're not in Europe. We're doing well in the cups. We can play aggressively because we're playing one game a week. But I said to a lot of people, we've lost a lot of that naughtiness, the bite that we used to have.
The feistiness,
yeah. Because Eddie Howe's trying to play a new system in a way where he's trying to play a more keep ball football, isn't he? So it was trying to get that balance right between the nastiness, the high press, and the also keeping the ball, playing a bit more tiki-taka as Pep plays it. And it was trying to mix them and mold them together to get the team that we have right now. We've got that bite back. We've got that little nastiness. And Joelinton's obviously the main one for that, isn't he? But then we've also got the guys who can keep the ball, the Bruno, the Tonali, playing the little 1-2s between each other just for a laugh in the middle of the game, just showing they're enjoying themselves. And that is what we've done really well. We finally got that mold of the Champions League campaign and this new style campaign together, and it's starting to you see the confidence in the players now, can't you?
Yeah, no, I mean, we were never going to replicate that season, because we got found out last season.
Yeah.
We got found out. Newcastle are going to press. If we can just get 2 passes beyond that attacking front three or midfield three, we're in. And that's just what kept happening. So we had to change it up. And I think, like you say, Baz, we've got a really nice balance there between pressing when we need to, where a few of our goals have come from recently, but also just being able to control a game. Because even in that season, we finished fourth. We never controlled games. Our possession stats were not great a lot of the time. We never controlled them. We just would hit teams either in their own halves or on the counter attack with the pace we had. So I think this kind of new style of play, where we've got that anchor of Tonali in midfield, letting the 2 other midfielders push on a bit, works really well. And I think that's going to be more conducive to doing well in the Premier League, because it's harder to play against. And I think people say we're back, and I say I don't think we are back. I think we've evolved quite a lot, and I think this new side, I love watching it. I love watching it as much as I love watching that attacking pressing all the time. It was exciting as fuck, that stuff. But this is, I think, more kind of satisfying to watch, where you're controlling midfield, you're dominating. Villa's midfield, they've got some hell of a midfield. Tielemans has been outstanding for them recently. That win against City recently.
I watched that game. It was brilliant.
Oh, so did I. And I knew that obviously we were coming up and thinking that's going to be a big test for this kind of new midfield three. But obviously Villa lost a man and it went down to 10. But I think I posted this on Blue Sky. I think we still would have won that game 11v11, no doubt, because they had control of that midfield, and that's something that we never really had in previous seasons.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Right, we're going to move on now to yourself, Henry. Find a bit more about you and your best 11, and also the 4 games that you would like to have been a player in, and which player and why, and all that sort of stuff. But before we move on to it,
and you start that as he's taking a gulp of his pint. Come on.
Yeah. Before we go to it, we're going to hit the subscribe button, guys. If you're enjoying the show, we're going to hit the thumbs up. We're going to, want to be a member if you want to be a member. But don't forget about our sponsors. We've got Diet Crow, who are amazing. Code VAS20 for 20% off. Link is in the description. Loads of bespoke and UFC stuff, but also loads of other stuff. I know this competition's finished, but they haven't started another one yet. But football prizes are amazing. They do amazing prizes. An Alan Shearer signed shirt. They could have got an Andy Cole boot, a Peter Beardsley top, and Tino top, a Gaza top, a Robert top, all signed. So check them out. There will be a new competition coming soon. And for me and Dan, obviously, we've got the big one coming up on the 16th of January. We're doing a live show with Luke Edwards right in the middle of a January transfer window. We're going to find out exactly what's going on behind the scenes. And it's all for Stanley Deaf Club and the NUFC Food Bank. They get all the cash. So email superfandan at 831@gmail.com and help us hit our target of getting over 10 grand given to charity by next year, which we're currently sitting on £6,700 donated so far. Right, there's all the rubbish out the way. Get back to football. That's what we're here for. Where do you want to start, Henry? Let's start with how you became a Newcastle fan. That's what I want to hear first.
How became a Newcastle fan? Well, I mean, I was born and raised in Newcastle, born in the RBI, just around the corner from St.James Park. And my family aren't a very big football family, or at least they weren't. But I got taken to a game when I was maybe 10 or 11 by a family friend, and it was Newcastle Portsmouth in 2006, I think. And I always go back to that sort of Bobby Robson quote of it's that kid going up the stairs, seeing the hallowed stuff, and without being able to do a thing about it, falling in love. And it sounds very corny, I realize, but it was very much kind of that kind of moment.
Happens.
This is fucking class. Like this is great. Like the atmosphere just blew my socks off, and I was just obsessed from that point on, really. And I had a season ticket for a couple of years. It was the season after we finished 5th. So I was
Yes.
thinking, this is it. We're
Yeah.
this is gonna be the 90s again. It's gonna be class, and then it wasn't. But it was good to have. It was good to be at the games though and soak it all up, and like just been obsessed with it ever since, really.
And then you were asking your parents, what the hell were you thinking not liking football?
Well, this is it. They've never disliked football, but like my dad played a lot of rugby when he was younger, and was
Right.
about it. And my mum always liked football, but we weren't like a big footballing household until I kind of got into it a lot. And now there's not a game. I'm at home at the moment. There's not a game that they miss.
Class.
No matter what game. It doesn't have to be Newcastle. Anything. They'll
Yeah.
what's on
Ah.
today. We'll watch the most obscure games possible. So, but yeah, no, absolutely. Like this is the one thing I think during COVID. I think that's when people realized how much they loved their football clubs, because it was like, well, this
Yeah.
is the thing that when it started coming back in. That was kind of when I had my moment where I was like, okay, actually, this is really important to me. So no, and I get to a lot of games, which is great, and yeah, it's been a fun couple of years for sure.
I bet. This is how this all started because of lockdown.
Yeah. Oh, is it? Okay. Well, there you go.
Yeah. Lockdown started it all, and then I met Dan online, John online, and you make friends that way as well. It was brilliant, to be fair. But yeah, so obviously you get yourself a job in radio. So how does the commentary come about? Is it something you've always wanted to do, or is it something you sort of fell into, or?
Kind of fell into it, to be fair, because there's always that discussion at school, like what you want to do at uni, and I was kind of not really motivated to do anything normal. Like I wanted to do something a bit different, like that was going to be quite an exciting kind of career. So I went for broadcast journalism was the course, and I don't know where it came from, but there was a lot of time at uni when you're fucking about and you're playing FIFA and that kind of thing, and you're having a few beers. I would just always find myself like commentating on the FIFA games. And at first, it was just a thing that I did when we came in for a night out and I'm just pissing about. But then all my mates were kind of like, "This is actually quite good. Can you?" And I'd get invited around to people's houses to commentate on their FIFA games, and I was like, "Well, this is strange. This is not
That's class.
uni was going for me, but
Yeah.
but no, I loved it. And there was a seminar at uni. I went to Leeds Uni, which was a great education in itself, because we were around Leeds United and Bradford City, and there was it's a big footballing area, West Yorkshire. So like it was really good to sort of get my teeth into that. There was a seminar where this guy came in to do a speech about commentating. His name was Peter Faris, and he was a commentator for one of the local BBC stations. And he did this amazing speech, and I was just thinking, this is actually quite interesting. Like, and I got to meet him, got to shadow him at a game at Chesterfield FC. I think it was Chesterfield Oldham Athletic, and he got me to record. So he was doing his whole thing for the BBC, and I had to bring my own little recorder along. And he was like, "Right, you do your own separate thing, and I'll listen back to it." And
That's good we're doing that.
Which is a lovely thing, and I'm incredibly grateful for that sort of, because he didn't have to do that, and it was great. And then the Radio Tyneside stuff, I mean, that's kind of something I've been involved with since I was 15, really. When I was trying to get into radio and broadcasting, I would just help out wherever I can. And so Radio Tyneside was the first radio station to ever provide commentary for Newcastle games in the 50s, I think it was around then. So before the BBC. And so they've had this long history of doing it, and I was aware of that, but never kind of thought I'd get that opportunity. But then started doing shows here and there. I went to uni, so I kind of went off the ball with that a bit, but then came back here and got to do a pre-season game. I think it was against Borussia Mönchengladbach. I think it was a few years ago now.
That was the next question. It was going to be, what was your first game that you commentated on with Newcastle? You can't remember?
I think it was that one. It was some obscure game, pre-season game, where it was like, well, let's see what he's like, and I just loved it. I just loved it. It's the best job ever, being able to obviously go to a game for free, which is unbelievable.
For free, you're getting paid.
I know, what's the thing? But that's incredible, and but then be able to chat shit throughout the whole thing, and watch my beloved team. And because Radio Tyneside's based in Tyneside, it's obviously very much leaning towards Newcastle fans, so I can be very biased, and
Yes.
and I'll post little clips of stuff on social media of doing that, and it seems people seem to like that sort of behind the scenes kind of
Oh yeah.
seeing kind of thing works, which is really nice. So yeah, and so I share the commentary kind of duties with two other guys, Max Taylor and Paul Laverick, who are amazing. They've been around the club for years and years and years. So we're kind of on a rotation basis where if those two are both free, then they're the main guys, obviously. But if one of them can't make it, then I slip in and do what I can. So it's great. I'm very fortunate to be able to do something like that. Because it was started as me being pissed watching FIFA games at uni, and now
getting paid off your mates to come and commentate while you're drunk. I love it.
Yeah, it was fun. It was good. Like I think they preferred that to the automated commentary. You get on.
It's rubbish.
Sorry, that's my phone.
It's all right.
The automated, Martin Tyler or whoever it is these days.
Oh, it was shocking on FIFA, that one. I used to hate it.
They wanted them.
It's brilliant.
But it takes a personality to do that. That's
does.
the thing. I mean, and a quick wit and a way with words, and obviously you got that in the plum. So there you go. Well done, Henry.
Appreciate that. Thank you. No, it's weird. It's like it's a lot of preparation, and it's a lot of kind of getting your notes together. And
that's what I was going to ask next. Is like what kind of behind the work do you do before a game? Like I remember seeing it might have been Martin Tyler on Sky. He had a binder, and it was like literally of every single player was on the bench, every single performance they did, things that might come up in the game if they come on, like amount of appearances, goals they've scored, things, little landmarks that they're reaching. Is that all the sort of stuff that you have to do as well for your radio commentary?
Absolutely, yeah. And every sort of commentators, if you speak to anyone, I've met a few, thankfully, in my time, which has been really helpful. And I've obviously learned a lot of the guys who do it already, who've done it for a while. And I'm still very much a work in progress in that respect, because it's a massively challenging thing to do, because you're spending days researching teams. Obviously, it's easier from a Newcastle point of view because I kind of know most of the back, and then that's kind of easy. But when we're playing. What was it? The recent one? It was Wimbledon. Home, and Wimbledon, a team I don't follow at all, and I wouldn't pretend to know anything about that thing. So you've got to do your research, and then there'll be player names. Well, how do you pronounce that? And so then you're going through stuff on YouTube, trying to find other commentators saying it. And you're like, okay, I need to write that note down, and this player, this connection with this club, and this and that. And so. But what's funny is you do all this research, and you have your pages of notes and what have you, and you use about 10-15% of it at best. Oh, wow. It's a phenomenal waste of time a lot of the time.
But you have to be ready though, don't you, just in case, I suppose.
Well, this is it, because you never know what's going to happen. That's the beauty of why we love this sport, isn't it? You have no idea what's going to happen, so you've got to be prepared for everything. But and if you listen to any radio commentary, whether it's on the BBC or TalkSport or us guys, the games where you hear the most stats are the most boring games, because there's nothing happening. Because your first and foremost role is to describe what's going on, and obviously painting that picture for people who are listening who can't see.
And you're filling dead air when there's nothing going on. So
sure, and that's the hardest part. That's the hardest part, where you're kind of thinking, okay, nothing's happening right now. Maybe the ball's out of play. What am I saying here? And that's when you kind of look down and you go, well, I didn't realize that, I had this stat that maybe it could work right now, and what have you. So it's great. And I'm still very, very new to it, and wouldn't pretend to be an expert on it at all. It's amazing how much talent there is out there. I'm a massive admirer of Matthew Raisbeck on BBC Newcastle. I think he does a sensational job. I think he's brilliant. Big inspiration of myself. So just trying to get as much time as possible doing it, and hopefully just see where it goes. But it's a huge privilege to see that side of the club you supported your most of your life.
To be shushed by Alan Shearer in the media room. That's a big deal, mate.
Yeah, the only problem is I get abused for being for people thinking that I'm Henry Winter from formerly of the Times. That's the only downside. But
only if you add 40 years, mate. You're all good. I appreciate the effort put into pronunciations. Especially for a Yank. Trying to follow. I used to call this, and Baz laughs every time I mention this. I learned the game through Championship Manager 93-94.
Yeah.
And my claim to fame is I picked up Newcastle because that was the team I wanted to play. And my first action was I always put Rob Lee up for sale for £750,000 because I didn't know any better. I didn't know any better, but I couldn't afford the Alan Shearer from Blackburn. I couldn't afford, so I sold Rob Lee in order to purchase Julian Joachim from Leicester City. But I was dumb and I called him Julian Joaquim. I just kept saying because I thought it was more of a Hispanic last name kind of thing. So no, I appreciate the effort going into making sure you put the right emphasis on the right syllable on someone's name, and getting it right. When I was doing in-game commentary last year, Baz, remember the time I went down to ask the Oakland coach, "Hey, how do you say this player's name?" He says, "None of us know. We all call him Bob." So when Bob was in the starting 11, you make a hash out of it, and it was also known as Bob.
I don't know why I'm laughing because I'm dyslexic, and when I see names, I cannot pronounce them one single bit. So everyone has a laugh at me for that. Leslie wants to know how you pronounce Mbeumo because apparently the commentator at the moment is calling Mbumu.
Well, I think I looked this up recently actually for the game, the cup game. He actually never came on, thank God. I think he did towards the end.
Yeah, he set up Wissa.
Yeah, he might have, but I never, for some reason, had the opportunity to say his name. Because what we do sometimes is we'll do the first half of the first half where one of us leads the commentary, and then halfway through we'll swap. So one of us will become the co-commentator. And so I think when he was on, I think I was in the co-commentator seat at the time. So thank God I didn't have to gamble on that. But I think it's Mbeumo. I think it is Mbeumo. I think that's I've listened to a lot of different commentators cover Brentford, and I think it is that. But I've not had to gamble yet, so I'm not 100% sure. But this is something that was one of the things that came up when I started commentating was the Fabian Shah.
Yeah, how you pronounce that? Yeah,
and you
Fabian.
You piss off people who go, I can't believe you're saying it this way. Isaac, Guimaraes, it's
Joe Ellington is the one that pisses me off. That's the one that just makes my blood boil every time. When Rebecca Lowe on NBC says Joe Ellington, I just want to come through the screen and say, no, Joelinton, damn it. So.
My mum, we were watching a game the other day. It must have been an away game because I wasn't at the match, and it was the ball came to Joelinton, and she went, "Oh, go on, Linton, go on, Linton." And I'm like, "You think
it's his nickname?
His last name is Linton, and like he's called Joel or Joe." And then she did. She always just assumed he was called Joe Linton. And so it's tricky. It's tricky.
I love it. Do you know what I really hate though is the Sky ones who, whenever someone goes to, Leslie's mentioned this, whenever they go to take a shot, they scream his full name. So we just shout Bruno, but he'll go Bruno Guimaraes, and I'm like, right, please stop it.
The full naming.
I hate it. I don't like it.
It's a tick. It's a tick because I think it's you try and create that drama in the moment when there is a goal. I mean, like the Newcastle 6 Tottenham 1 game just comes to mind. I mean, that was the best game I've commentated on without a doubt because that was just pure bedlam for that first half an hour. But it was really challenging because there's only so many ways you can announce a goal, and so you have 5 in the first whatever it was half an hour or whatever. And it was mental, and you got to try and keep it fresh. And I think the habit is to go, Joelinton or this and that. But I think Matthew Raisbeck does a great job of this. From bits I listen to, where he does mix up the energy, and I think it's not so much about the moment you announce the goal scorer. It's the build up because that's the stuff that works really well on radio. Is that person's in their car at home and they're sort of painting the picture of the game in their head, and you're like, okay, it goes out to Bruno to da, and trying to build that pace and that kind of excitement towards that chance. I think is the skill, and I suppose perhaps the art of it is being able to do that. And there's a lot of great commentators.
Change it up. Yep.
I think one of the best ones I heard in that Spurs game was John Anderson, because it obviously got to a point where we scored in the fourth. He just started laughing.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
I thought that was brilliant. That was a great way to sum it up. It's just, I cannot believe what we're actually watching. It was insane. Luckily, if I was at that game as well, I was just, breathtaking.
Wow. Yeah.
Especially that Willock pass. Now the goal was brilliant, but the Willock pass was to get more excited about than the actual goal, wasn't it? Even though Isak put the Tottenham defender on his head, didn't he? He did somersaults in the box and he slammed it in the corner. But the pass, probably the best pass I've ever seen at ST.James Park.
No, I agree with that.
I agree with that. Unreal.
It was amazing.
Oh man! Right. Let's go to your 11.
Oh, I'm nervous about this because
I'm looking forward to it.
You get torn apart by people listening who will
there is no wrong answer here, Henry. There is no wrong answer. Unless you say Andreas Anderson up front, there's no wrong answer.
Or Stefan Givash.
What I've done, in my defense, what I've done to make this easier for myself, because I'm not going to pretend that I know what Jackie Milburn was like as a player, and so I've
all about opinions
from my lifetime, kind of. I was born in '96, so I've sort of trying to pick players from that era, because I'm not going to pretend to know what it was like watching Gaza live for Newcastle.
Exactly. That's why he never makes my top 11, because I've never seen him play.
That's my disclaimer before I entered.
Again, no wrong. You're right in my wheelhouse, Henry. Go for it.
So we'll start off with, you playing a 4-3-3, is that right? Looking at the because I've seen the team.
Yeah. I'm going to play a 4-3-3, the sort of midfielder playing a bit deeper. So I've gone
I'm questioning why you let one player out when we get to the end of it.
There's no wrong answers, Baz. Let the boy be.
There is.
I heard it. I just heard him say Shay Given in goal.
Shea Given is the perfect start.
That would be my first pick. Yep.
No, for sure. I mean, I think Tim Krul's got a good shout as well. I think he had
did have a spell, didn't he?
Where he made 20-odd saves in a game against Tottenham. I mean,
Spurs, Luca Remy scored the winner, didn't he?
Yeah, and I loved him. But no, given like when I first started playing football, I was obsessed about being a keeper, and it was him that was my sort of inspiration. I never played in goal in the end, but like I just loved the idea of the gloves, and Shay Given was just like on my wall. He was, and what a keeper! Like he's obviously a legend in the Republic of Ireland, but just reflexes, agility, third on the club's all-time appearances, I think, third or fourth.
Sadly, the only Irishman who doesn't know where Dublin is. I went there. I went there.
You go there, didn't you?
Because I watched that game. It was one of the only games I've ever been able to see, in the States back then before it was on cable. It happened to be on, and fuck's sake.
Yeah, but Rob Lee scored a screamer from 40 yards though to equalise. So we'll let him off for that one. But Shay Given again, he's double saves as well. Were phenomenal, weren't they?
No,
perfect choice. Yep.
Should I go?
Who's your left back? Who's your left back?
Left back was tricky because that's not an easy one. I don't think we've had the luxury of many good left backs, but John Beresford, obviously a player that I'm aware is a legend.
You wouldn't have seen him, would you? That's why.
I just didn't. I mean, I think he might have still been playing when I was 4 or 5, but I'm not going to pretend.
But not for our club. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend that I know what he was like as a player. I've heard the stories. I've seen the clips. Like, what a player! But I've actually gone for Jose Enrique.
Just a sensible choice for your era.
Left back, he was brilliant, and I think that season when we were in the Championship, and the first season we got relegated, I think he was absolutely sensational. And I can't really think of a left back other than maybe Lewis Hall, but it's kind of early days with that has kind of left that impression on me. Like, he's got to be one of the first names on the team sheet.
There's two, I think, in your era. Oliver Bernard would be the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thought about that for sure. I think
Santon. David
Santon potentially. Santon.
Yeah, you know what? But he was he right-footed? Am I wrong in saying that?
Yes, he was. Yeah,
Right-footed left back.
He was right-footed, and I always thought it was better to have a left-footed left back because he got a fair few assists, Jose Enrique, as well, in that team. So that's why.
The only thing with him is he left on a bit of a sour note to Liverpool, didn't he? But again,
and talks like he's an expert for Liverpool, and doesn't have a whole lot of nice things to say about us anymore. I
basically on personality because I've seen that game that he came back to St. James's Park when he was playing for Liverpool. He ended up in goal, didn't he?
Yes.
That I'll never forget that as a great moment. So,
the other reason why Santon got legendary status is because he said he'd never seen a Macam in Milan, and as soon as you say something like that, that's it. You're a legend.
You're in.
All right, do we hop over to the other flank, or do we go from left to right?
Other flank. Let's go the other flank.
Who's your right back?
I've gone Trippier.
Yeah.
Okay.
I absolutely agree with that.
I don't think we've had as high quality right back in my lifetime as Trippier. And when we signed him, we were in the doldrums, up against relegation. And it's unfair to say he single-handedly kept us up, but his inclusion in that team when he joined in January, because the first game we played was against Cambridge, and we lost to Cambridge at home. And I thought,
shocking.
What must he be fucking thinking now? Like what? Why on earth have I signed for this? But he's been sensational, an incredible captain when he was the club captain. He was instrumental in the season. We finished 4th, and I think he's perhaps past his prime now. And I think injuries here and there, some off-field stuff here and there that maybe has caused a bit of distraction. But I think he'll go down as one of the most highly regarded right backs in
100%.
100%. Now I've been watching games since like 1990, and Barry Venison, potentially Warren Barton might get a bit of a mention in there because he's the most expensive right back at the time. But
Aaron Hughes didn't do a bad job.
Aaron Hughes was versatile. He's centre back, played right back as well. But Trippier was he's a level above all of them. To be fair,
agreed.
So,
head and shoulders above. Yep. All right, so we keep going. Right centre back.
Okay, so right centre back, I've gone. To be fair, either of these centre backs could play in right or left. I'm not going to get too bogged down in that, but I've put in Woodgate. Just because he didn't play many games.
28.
I think it's a 28.
38 or 28 or 38.
Or 28, I think.
28.
He was our defensive Wilson. He was just glass.
Yeah.
That's all.
But he obviously had a terrible time with injuries. But one of the first games I watched on telly, I think, was the game against Marseille at home, the first leg in the away.
Drogba.
Yeah, and it was him against Drogba, and I mean he absolutely nullified him. And he got injured for the second leg, and we ended up losing 2-0, I think, in the end. But what a player! And I didn't see a massive amount of him, but like the bits I did, and if you speak to many fans, they'd say that was probably one of the highest quality centre backs we had. We just were so 100%. Unlucky. Didn't quite hit the heights in terms of
being bit of business we ever did. Sell him to Real Madrid. Yeah,
well, he had a shocking. He didn't play for a year at Real Madrid, then got sent off and scored an own goal or whatever. So his career went downhill after leaving Tyneside. Clearly, But so I've got Woodgate in there, and I've got Philippe Albert. I mean, that for me is a no-brainer, and I think I just loved how attacking he was. Obviously, everyone will remember that chipped goal against Man United, but it's one of the reasons why I like Fabian Schär so much is that he's very attacking-minded, and I think that you see that in obviously Philippe Albert. Not someone I watched a lot live because I was incredibly young, but like when you look at clips of old games and stuff, and you speak to fans who know a lot more than you, he's a top player.
And his cheesy fucking mustache every once in a while. It's just, what are you trying to be, Tom Selleck? Come on now. but it was brilliant. Great, fantastic back four, Henry.
I've got no complaints with
that. One's hard. I was going to say hard to argue.
Good base. I like it.
Yeah, we'll see where it goes from here. But
all right, who's playing the 6 for you?
Yeah. So the 6, So, I mean, to be fair, Newcastle have been blessed with some great midfielders. So this was actually really hard. So I've gone a lot with not necessarily maybe the greatest players we've technically had in those positions, but the players that I've just really loved to see.
Yeah.
In that CDM sort of 6 role, I put Czech Tiote.
Yeah.
Just because I adored him. I just absolutely adored him, and you know, so athletic, so aggressive, and he kind of perfected that kind of grass cutter pass, that long range pass where the ball would not leave a foot off the ground, but it'd have loads of backspin. I just love the way he would spray it out to the fullbacks and midfielders. And obviously the goal against Arsenal, he'll be, you know, always revered as a legend for that moment.
And the one he got robbed of.
And the one he got robbed of against Man City.
Against Man City. So I was at that game. That was one of the few games that was, I think that's when I had a season ticket, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, I remember seeing that live and thinking that's one of the best goals I've ever seen in my entire life. And for it to be ruled out, I can't remember what it was. Was it a defender on the way? Or...
Yeah, defender blocked Joe Hart's field of vision or field of view. It was like
blocked. This day and age, it would never get ruled out because he was not in line of sight. Yeah. But you are right. He's very, very good at it. Obviously, go back a few more years, the years that you missed, Gary Speed,
David Batty.
But I'll always remember Tiote as Riot, because if you had predictive text on your phone, you type Tiote in, it would come up as Riot. And that is just so fitting for the man, isn't it? Really, to be fair. So,
the faux hawk that he always had, which is, you know, I think probably the basis for what is now being styled as a mullet coming back. You know, it was the big wedge on top, and then the white walls with it still long in the back. So yeah, no arguments with that.
I'll tell you another reason why he's so good is that he didn't play in a 3, he played in a 2 with Cabaye.
Yeah.
And there wasn't that extra third man in midfield in the centre. He had to hold some big midfields, and them two were brilliant together.
No, and Cabaye was in my thinking, to be fair, in that midfield, because I mean, pairing, but in the end, so I went with the other 2 midfielders who were slightly ahead of Tiote. I've gone for Rob Lee. I've gone for Bruno. For Bruno. Just, you know, Rob Lee, legend, 10 years at Newcastle, and he was part of obviously that entertainers cohort. Scored goals, always a threat, so reliable. Not a player I saw massively, so I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on him, but just from the bits I've seen, discussions with fans who know Newcastle a lot better than I do, I think he's always a name that comes up as someone who's so reliable. So yeah, got Rob Lee
trio of headers against Antwerp.
Pound for pound, the best signing Kevin Keegan ever made, from Kevin Keegan's mouth as well, because
you stole the words right out of my mouth.
Obviously Fabian Schär comes into that conversation now as well.
He does. No, for sure. It's that kind of similar kind of signing, isn't it, where you just think, how the hell have we got this from what we paid? But but then Bruno, I mean, I just love him. I think he's been instrumental to the transformation we've seen at the club in the last few years, and he's quite an unconventional player. When you look at him, the way he strikes a ball, it's kind of, it's almost like he's kind of, his foot's like a golf club, and he's kind of like hitting through it like a golf club almost, like rather than swinging through it like you would traditionally hit a kick ball. But he's got a great pass on him. He's so creative. We've seen the last game, you know, outside the boot passes, playing players in. I mean, I got a stat here I was looking at earlier. I mean, since his debut, amongst other Premier League midfielders, he's first in goal involvements, first in goals, first in successful dribbles, first in duels won, first in fouls won, second in assists, second in chances created. I mean, he's been an absolute revelation for us, and I just couldn't think of a good reason not to have him in there, to be honest.
I'll tell you one very good reason why he wouldn't be in my 11. Peter Beardsley.
Yeah.
Well, you have that luxury, my friend. No.
This is it. That, like, obviously he comes into my thinking, Peter Beardsley, but I've got to pick this, because if I put Peter Beardsley in, I know the comments will be full of people going, he wasn't even fucking alive when he played. How the hell?
I know.
I can't win.
1996, he was still there. 97.
Yeah.
You know,
so I was 2 or 3 years old. Yeah.
Yes.
Henry, you have all the justification you need. You're good. You're fine.
Yeah.
Bruno is a terrific choice. It's already in the chat. Where's Gaza? I'm like, well, okay, he wasn't alive when Gaza was playing. He already said
exactly.
that. So
Gaza was in my original draft, but I was just
Yep.
I just know that I just can see the comments now. I know how social media works. So
I am dreading your front three right now for you, only because in my 30 years of following him, there have been so many class players that can play. And I mean, there's only one center forward for me.
Well,
and arguably the guy who's wearing the number 14 shirt right now is doing better than that guy. So anyway, I'm not going to get that far. This is Henry's 11, not mine.
This is my argument about Peter Beardsley because he's got a player in that he's going to say very soon. I'm going, when he played with him.
Well,
I just cannot not put in.
Exactly. Yep.
It was a civil war in Newcastle. So what should I start with? I'll start with my
left.
I was going to say, we started with the left. Let's go.
The left. Okay, I've got Ginola in there. And look, did I see him play much live? Of course not. I'm not going to pretend I did. But he's obviously a big personality on TV and stuff. And so you get to know him and you think, okay, I'll look back at his clips and what a beautiful player. Like that, the first
was it Vidal Sassoon? Was it Vidal Sassoon that he was a spokesperson for? Or was it?
I can't remember which one it was, but he definitely did do a shampoo advert.
Yeah, to go from us to Spurs to Villa and be known by several fans for shampoo commercials.
Yeah.
rather than his left foot. I mean, and let's be honest. What was the one goal that he scored at Villa where he ripped his top off and everything? I think women got pregnant watching television.
That was the manager saying that he wasn't fit enough, and that was his response.
Right. Yep.
That's right.
He was an Adonis, for crying out loud. So
I just think he had so much flair and such an exciting player. So I
is held in such high regard still to this day.
Sure. No, so I've popped him in there. On the right, this is where I'm going to cause riots, and this is where I'm going to cause.
I think personally, from your era, this is right up there.
From my era, I think one of the most gifted players I've seen, just naturally gifted players I've seen, is Hatton Ben Arfa.
100%. I agree with that.
Just he didn't perform every game. He wasn't perhaps the most consistent player, but just in terms of being able to turn nothing into something. The goal against Bolton, whether it's obviously a dribbling goal or the screamer against Everton, and just so skillful. I just loved watching him, and he's a similar player to St. Maximin. Obviously, is a similar kind of breed where you're thinking, okay, the end product maybe isn't always there, but
he was a luxury player. Yep.
But you love them. You love them.
He did it twice, didn't he? Because he did it against Bolton from the halfway line, and then he did it against Blackburn in the FA Cup.
In the cup. So that was the game I was at. Was the Blackburn game, and that's the best goal I've seen live.
That was nuts.
The defending wasn't great, but I just adore it. If we're talking about my era, I think as a right winger, he could obviously play 10 and on the left, Ben Arfa, to be fair. But I can't think
he was brilliant on the right, wasn't he? Because he played alongside Cisse and Demba Ba and him on the right as a front three, and they were brilliant that season.
Yeah,
sensational. I mean, they're incredible, and we're not been blessed with right wingers. I was thinking about Nobby Solano.
Not lately, that would have been mine.
Yeah, Solano was in that team sheet, and I took him out this morning.
I didn't know Rule Fox. I knew Keith Gillespie and Nobby Solano were my first two right wingers that I know, and Solano would be in my 11. So I can see where you're coming from. Yep.
Yeah, no, Solano was on there. He was such a clever player and an amazing delivery as well. And
first time I ever saw a goal scored with the outside of the boot.
Yeah,
was the one against Everton. So
against Everton. Yeah, no, and and for my man up top, who I'm sure will come as to no surprise to anyone, is I think he would have loved those deliveries. But there you go. Yeah, Shearer, obviously. I mean, I don't need to explain that. It'd be a waste of time.
No, I mean,
and you've been shushed by him, so I mean, that's all you need. So no, that's a great 11. And like I said, you're for being born in '96, Henry, that is a very commendable 11. Yep, agreed.
I'll take that. Thank you.
Yeah.
I've stressed a lot about it. I mean, I said when I was doing this, like, you're going to change your mind about 10 times in the next week. I was like, yeah, I am, because it's hard. It's hard.
It is very hard.
You know,
I was 23 in '96, but I didn't start following Newcastle until '93, '94.
Mm.
So, you know, I don't have many years on you, but I also got to see a lot more, because the internet was not the internet that we have today in '96. And the social media, of course, didn't exist. The only thing we had were, you know, end of season DVDs and stuff that or not even DVDs then, they were VHS tapes. But I mean, if you could get them and you were able to watch them, then you were able to catch up. We spent the first decade of the internet, as soon as that wonderful thing called YouTube came out, that we went on a steady diet of nothing but old clips to see what could we learn, what was the history that we missed out on. So no, this is I love this 11. This is great.
Thanks, man.
There's only a couple of players I would change, obviously, because of from my era. But I think for your era, that's a brilliant 11. Even though you cheated a little bit and had a few players from my era, I'll let you off.
He makes up for that by having Tiote in there. He makes up for it to having
It's a great 11. There's not many. I mean, if you look at that, I mean, who's stopping them from scoring?
Yeah.
And who's getting past them? Someone said in the chat there, they leak a lot of goals. I'm like, how? When you've got a solid back five like you've got there, and even with Bruno helping out, Rob Lee will help out in that situation. You know, no one's getting past Woodgate and Albert. And then Albert's bombing up front, scoring goals as well. It's a great team. I like it.
And then you could put on the bench, you could put Cher and Botman right now out of the current squad. You could put them on the bench and you'd be covered. Shit, I'd take Sylvain Distin. And he was only there for half a season.
Yeah.
He was brilliant, and then he went on to Man City and then on to Everton. So I mean, he wasn't a bad player either. So
no, he was good. He was good.
Yep.
Who's managing them?
I think Bobby Robson. It's difficult to think of a manager you'd rather have. I mean, I love Eddie Howe, and I think in years to come we'll look back and he might be revered in perhaps the same way.
Same conversation. Yep.
Yeah, same conversation for sure. So, but no, Bobby Robson, I mean, took over when the club was in tatters, turned it round, finished fourth the next season. I think third the next one, if I'm not mistaken. Brought that sort of cultured football that he learned abroad over, and the man. You know, there's a statue outside of the stadium for a reason. So I think he'd get along with everyone in that team. I would say he knows a few of them already. I think
there's no Bellamy and no Dyer in there, so it's all good.
No.
Or Bowyer and Dyer.
Yeah. Oh, Bowyer.
Right. Last question
or
for
Emre.
Emre. We've kept you on a bit longer than I expected, so I apologize for that.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
My fault. Hands up. My fault.
All good.
This
Blame
is a
the
question that. Yeah, always blame the Yank. This is a question I got asked on Project Football. I did a podcast with them. They invited me on, and I thought it was a great question. And it's pick 4 games that you wish you were playing in, and from whose perspective would you like to play? So I picked, for example, it was the 7-1 thrashing of Leicester, and I wanted to be like Andy Cole or David Kelly, because obviously we won the championship that year and it was brilliant. So what games have you gone with, and from which perspective, and why?
I've obviously prioritized games from sort of my era.
Yeah.
But I have gone in terms of, you know, one of the earliest ones in my list. I've gone for Newcastle 5, Man United 0. How can you not? I mean, I think that's it was just one of the most iconic games in Newcastle's history. Obviously, so much chat because Shearer had just joined. He just turned down Man United, and he's the player I'd like to have been in that game, because he was getting booed by the Man United fans, all that kind of chat in the lead up to it, and he comes up with an assist for Ferdinand, and
I remember it well.
and then a goal, and so yeah, I think that would have been a quality game, and I love his post-match interview as well afterwards. We had them. Yeah, no, that would be my first one. That would be my first.
That was sweet revenge because they beat us 4-0 in the Charity Shield.
Yeah,
they hammered us that day. We never even we didn't lay a glove on them. And then they didn't lay a glove on us when they played at St.James's Park. And the great thing about the celebration when he did that, it was the perfect moment. I don't know if you know this or not, but as soon as Shearer crossed, just before he crossed that ball, they read out the attendance, 32,000, whatever, and the Man United fans started going, hey! So Shearer whips it in, Ferdinand heads it, and he starts doing this to the fans.
Yep.
It was just epic. It was perfect.
Yep.
You couldn't write the script, really. It was just that good.
Was that the same game where Batty got Nicky Butt by the throat?
Yes, I think it might have been.
Not 100%.
Because there was a Karol Poporski went through, and Cernicek slid out, and he did what Duran did. He left his foot on him. When he jumped over him, he actually used him as a springboard. And I think that's when things got a little bit leery. And
got a little bit heated.
He had him by the throat like that.
Would definitely in a VAR sense, he would have been sent off now. I mean, that was David Batty saying, "Look, youngster, I'm in charge here, not you."
And I like Nicky Butt as well. I thought he was a decent player for us. Obviously, there was a bit of
100%
stuff, but yeah.
100%.
But yeah, what a game. What a game. I mean, Janola's goal, Albert's chip. Shearer hit the post from 25, 30 yards, and he hadn't had a shot in the game.
It was just right. Yeah.
It was just a brilliant game.
One of my favourite games to watch back whenever I'm on a YouTube troll looking through all the Newcastle stuff. I would have loved to have been there that day.
I was 15 or 16.
Lucky.
And then my dad taped it on VHS. And every time I came, because obviously when I was 18, I used to just go out and get absolutely levered down Whitley Bay. And every time I come home pissed, I'd put the tape on and watch the game at 4 o'clock in the morning. Just screaming when we're scoring, parents upstairs banging on the floor. What are you doing? I'm watching the game again.
I'm sure that's what Eddie Howe does.
Definitely. 100% he does. What's the next game?
Fine. And then chronologically, I've gone for the Newcastle 5, Sunderland 1 from 2010. I think
Kevin Nolan hat-trick.
Yeah, and that's the play I would have loved to have been in that game. I think scoring a hat-trick in a local derby, you instantly become a legend. What a feeling.
The chicken celebration and why? I mean, yeah, absolutely perfect.
He stole it from Robbie Elliott.
He was on holiday in that close season before that season, and he was out with a bunch of mates out on the lash, and they said, if you score a hat trick, you have to do the funky chicken. And he goes, you're on. And here's Nolan thinking, I'm never going to get a hat trick. And then it became his goal celebration from then on, because there you go.
Love it.
That's the story he told, at least.
Yeah. I mean, I was at that one as well. That's one of the few derbies I went to where we actually won, because I think we had a nasty run with them.
Never happened. That's
we won't talk about it now. We won't talk about it now. But, that one.
We quantum leap past those. It's okay.
And then my next one is the 4-4 game.
Oh yes.
And you were Tiote.
Yeah,
you had to. Perfect.
Well, because just what a feeling that must be to have hit it on your weaker foot on the edge of the box into the Gallagher, to draw that game when it was just lost completely out of nowhere. And obviously, Kevin Nolan was part of that team. Joey Barton.
Joey Barton was as well. Should have won it.
Mental in that result. I mean,
Joey Barton's cheeky shithousery to get that free kick against Rosicki was brilliant. Yeah, just perfect.
Yeah,
went down like a sack of spuds.
Less
scored the winner as well, shouldn't he?
Exactly.
We'll ignore that, but
just a little bit. His Twitter's account's terrible.
Yeah,
he's not my favorite person anymore. But agreed. Yep.
But that's the Joey Barton I remember. So 4-4. And then the final one is I think the greatest game I've ever been to. Newcastle 4, PSG 1. I mean,
yes, I was there as well. Yes, that was
what I was lucky enough to get through a few family, friends, I managed to get hospitality tickets, which I've never had before to this game. And so you're on the beers and a bit of food beforehand.
Where were you? Park Grill, or were you in? Because you got to remember, Yanks like me, that's the only way we get tickets.
Yeah.
To games.
Yeah.
So I've been in the Park Grill. I've been in the Barracks. I haven't seen Wings, but when we were there this last March, we had a couple of friends that were in Wings. So
I'm trying to think which one it was, because they rebranded it all.
Right. Were you in the Lee's End?
Yeah, no. We were in the Milburn stand.
Okay.
So it was in the sort of leather seats, and I think it might have been the grill, the grill one.
The Park Grill is still the Park Grill, and that's in the Lee's End. That's right underneath. That's the one right underneath the away fans, beneath level 7.
I can't remember.
So, and then the Barracks, we were there that's last time, and that's the least expensive one, but that's the big, like an auditorium kind of like hall, and it's a buffet that you have before.
Yes, one. That's the one. That's the one. Yeah, no, because I think they rebranded it for the Champions League. I think they called it something else. I can't remember what it was now. But yeah, it was a buffet thing. It was amazing and immense privilege. Like not something I could ever have afforded. But we got invited, and I mean that game. I was there with my dad, which was really special as well. We don't really get to go to many games with him. So just I mean the atmosphere was incredible, as you obviously knew it would be for that kind of game, but just the way we played and I was trying to think of which player would I wanted to be in that game, and there's the obvious thing of maybe Fabian Schär with the last minute goal and all that kind of thing. But I actually think I'd go for Dan Burn.
The header,
the header, and just lad from Blythe, supported Newcastle, as a kid, and you're playing against Mbappe at St.James's Park, and you're winning 4-1 in the Champions League.
Boston.
That feeling.
That long wait for his goal though, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was a horrible wait, wasn't it?
It was the way it was building up like that. It was, because when it was announced, the roof
just celebration, with
the rain lashing down.
Yeah. When you're in the crowd, you don't know what's going on though. And we were, because I was in the Gallagher end, right at the other side, and I'm going, they must be looking at a foul because he climbed on him or something. That's what I saw. And they were like looking at an offside and looking at this, and look, it was a ball over the line. And then when they give it, the eruption was amazing.
Yeah, because it's just the best spectacle I've ever watched.
Well, and just I'm gonna call it this, but I'm sure that's not what he was doing. His Angel of the North impression. I mean, he just. Because let's be honest, Dan Burns' arms are as wide as the Angel of the North, for crying out loud. It was immense. Agreed, 100%. Yep.
I had a mate who he wasn't at the game, but he was watching it on telly, and obviously it's a bit delayed compared to obviously the live action. And he was watching it in his flat in the Staithes, sort of Gateshead way, and he was watching with his girlfriend, and he just heard this roar from across the Tyne, and he tells the stories like, I turned to Laura and I was like, I think Newcastle just fucking scored, and then he says that first goal, and but just I've never experienced an atmosphere like that before, and you get a little bit emotional thinking about it. Just that, it was amazing. It was amazing.
Just being back in the Champions League, hearing the Champions League theme again at St James's Park after all those years. I mean,
obviously I really missed out on that kind of era of Newcastle. I was very, very young. Don't really remember it. So and going back to the FIFA stuff, that would be the game I'd always play on my on PlayStation, is get Newcastle Champions League. And obviously they do the theme song and stuff before the games on career mode, and I'd always let it play because I'd be like, well, this is class, and this is what it would be like. And then you're there and you're hearing it, and it was just a spellbinding kind of night that I don't think it would be hard to top that, to be fair. And I suppose winning a trophy would be
possibly
to top that, but that was incredible. So that would be my 4 games.
Brilliant games. That PSG one was second best atmosphere I've ever been in, because the Man United 5-0 topped it for me. I don't think that'll ever be beaten, because I think the atmosphere has changed from a 32,000 seater to a 52. When it was 32, it was more of a cauldron. It was just a little bit extra decibels. But PSG was so close to it, though.
I can't argue with either one of those. Those would be in my top 4. I would put the 4-4 up in my top 4. the one that slips in for me, and only from an emotional level, is the 6-2 Good Friday match against Everton that my wife and I attended on our honeymoon. That's only because we were 1 goal up, and then we went 2 goals down, and it was 2-1, and then to come back and equalize, and then to score 4 in the second half was just ridiculous. And then having all the Geordies say we couldn't go home because we were a good luck charm. We had to stay. So yeah, that one's an emotional connection. So
well, that's what it's all about, isn't it? And
it's all about your own opinions, isn't it?
Falling in love and having nothing to do about it.
Yeah, well, this is. But with the PSG one, obviously it was a footballing spectacle, and Newcastle played really well. But just being there with my dad, that was the whole kind of like, this is a moment that I'll remember for the rest of my life. Like, Dad, I've got the picture of him with one of his flags and all that kind of thing. It was it was a beautiful evening. It's a beautiful evening. I'm sure it's similar for you. With that one.
Yes. Yeah. I mean,
all right, so we got to get to Henry to Benfield. Pass.
If he wants to come, he's more than welcome to come to Benfield.
When's that? March? Did you say?
January 16th.
January the 16th.
January, not March.
I don't know where you got March from.
No.
16th of January, 7:00, kicking off. Luke Edwards is going to be our special guest, but now we might have 2. If
we'll get Henry shushed by Luke Edwards, and everything. It will be he'll have covered it all then. Oi, you with the hair at the bar, shush.
You'll have riots from Newcastle fans thinking it's Henry Winter, the newspaper. You want to be careful with that on your advertising.
We'll keep it on the DL, mate.
Yeah.
I feel so sorry for you. Honestly, the actual abuse that was being sent in messages there, I was like, mate, you've got the wrong one. Shut up.
It's all good. It's all good.
It happens a lot.
We'll just call him Harry from now on, or Hank. We'll just call him that, and then it'll take off. It'll catch, and then will have created his persona for the rest of his career. There you go.
I'm game for that. That sounds good.
You might have seen John, who's wearing the cap there in the middle with me. You might have seen him online. He's coming over. He's here as well for it.
You probably already have one of his business cards.
I'd love to meet John. I see him popping up on my timelines all the time, as with you guys too. But yeah, no, John's one of the first sort of US fans I think I started following on social media. So
I just went to go look up Henry's Blue Sky account. I find we're already following each other. So it was right after we made the switch. So
perfect.
Yep.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on. We've absolutely loved this. We've got on way longer than we normally do, so apologies for that. But Dan,
this is a show for the books, though.
It is. Yeah. It has been absolutely fantastic. Some great insight, especially once like being a commentator, because obviously I try and do it on YouTube, which I'm not very good at doing it, but I do it my own way. When are we live next, Dan? Exactly. It's what it's all about. When do we play again? Do we play Monday?
We play Monday.
United.
Yeah, so Sunday night we'll be live again, doing a look ahead to the Sunday, and then we'll see what happens from there, because we've got another game quite quickly afterwards, which is Spurs. Massive 6-pointers coming up because we want to dick Man United at Old Trafford. We need to do it. We haven't beat them since Kabay scored the winner in a Premier League game. I know we beat them in the Carabao Cup, but it's not the same.
How's the weather in Manchester right now?
I have no idea.
I just don't want it to be raining. That's all I give a shit about.
Very foggy at the moment. All the planes are
foggy.
Fucked up at the moment.
Two of the matches yesterday, Baz, looked like Monterey Bay games because of the fog.
Yeah, Leicester Liverpool was thick.
Yep. And Southampton, West Ham was it? Southampton, West Ham. That was also foggy. So.
Yeah, but the Man United fans will probably thank you for the fog, so they don't get to see the hammering the team's about to receive. So there you go.
Well, let's just keep our fingers crossed.
Stop it. We haven't beat them yet. I've got to calm down, haven't I? But thank you, everyone, for.
But there's only going to be one Bruno on the pitch.
That is true.
That's the best part. There's only and it's the best Bruno. I don't know what anybody's thinking about the other guy. Who gives a fuck?
Nobody is. I love it. Right, guys.
Thank you, lads. Thanks for letting me tag along, Baz.
Thank you, guys. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Henry. We'll see you in January.
You're a star. Thank you very much.